Happy Isru Chag to everyone. I'll mention, Jeff just asked a question about La Menatseach in Tfilot, where he writes, you have, after Shemona Esrei, you have Tachanun, Ashrei, La Menatseach, Uvalet Zion. Right? And
until after the 12th of Sivan.
Do we say La Menatseach today or not on Isru Chag? So Sfardim have it very easy. Sfardim always connect Tachanun and Lam Natseach.
So they skip it.
If they omit Tachanun, they omit Lam Natseach. It's very easy to understand that. Why?
I'm Sfardi.
Because they put them both together. Because V'chav Chanan Chatasi Lefanecha, God, I've sinned. It's a bit of a sad tefillah, Tachanun. And so too, Lam Natseach, Yancha Hashem b'Yom Tzara, answer us on a Yom of Tzara, of tragedy. So they just put, anytime it's a happy day, however you define that, so they delete both. For us, we have two levels, which makes it more complicated. For us, any day of Simcha, we knock out Tachanun pretty quickly. To knock out Lam Natseach, it has to be a greater day of Simcha. How do you define that? Of course, is a fun topic. Maybe one day we'll go through it. But because of that, we will often say Lam Natseach, even though we don't say Tachanun. Today, you'll see siddhas that do both. Sephardic siddhas all deleted, because it's connected to Tachanun. The Ashkenazic siddhas, some will go ahead and say you should say it because it's a nice day, Yisro Chag, but it's not enough to warrant deleting Lam Natseach. While the Chazon Ish held that since it is Yontif Sheni, across the world, the Jews are still celebrating Yontif Sheni Mitzvah, they'll all come home and celebrate only one day, but for now, it's still a Simcha enough that we don't say Lam Natseach. That's the minhag. Now, back to over here. So what I do sometimes is connect the Tuesday Shir, Thursday's Parsha, if there's relevant halachas from the Parsha. So then I do the halachas on Tuesday of the Parsha, and then Thursday some hashkafa, more Musar type of element. And there is a lot of interesting halachot over here.
Naso?
In the Parsha, in Naso. Listen to this chapter. And it applies to everyone, and I want to read through the Rambam on it. So he says the following. This is Naso, which is the biggest chapter in the biggest parsha in the Torah. The biggest Tehillim is 176 psukim, the biggest Gemara of Arbas 176 pages, and the biggest parsha is 176 psukim. So, there's a lot here. So in the Parsha, Naso starts off with Naso, Perek Dalid. Naso Rosh B'nai Gershon, from 30 till 50. Gershon from the Levi tribe does their work. It talks about Merari and their jobs, and everyone talks about all the different jobs that everyone has. And then Shlishi, which is chapter 5. Vayidber Adonai Moshe Lemor. Zaves b'nei Yisrael v'yishalchu min ha'machaneh kol tzarur v'kol zav v'chol tamei lanafesh. So God says to Moshe, tell b'nei Yisrael, send from the machaneh anyone who has tzara'as, and anyone who has a zav, a certain level of tumah, and anyone who's tamei lanefesh. Anyone, which is all of us, are tamei lanefesh. Everyone's been to a hospital, cemetery. Okay, we all tamei nefesh. Male, female, everyone has to leave the camp. And send them out. And they cannot go ahead and metame the camp. And they followed the halacha. So you say, wait a second, you told us halacha l'maisa. We're going to discuss halacha l'maisa today, Tuesday. What's this halacha l'maisa? This is what happened in the camp 3,300 years ago in Israel. What does it have to do with us now? It has everything to do with every one of us. Every one of us needs to learn these psukim. Not just to learn psukim. We all want to learn the whole Torah Kula. But we also have to learn these psukim, a halacha l'maisa for every one of us. You'll say, what do you mean halacha l'maisa? Sending out someone who's tamei from the camp in the midbar. Let's not date ourselves too much here. Okay, we are not in the midbar. We're here. What does that do with anything? Rashi. This day, Parsha was set up on the day the Mishkan was set up, and the halachas were given of who could be in the Mishkan. Which camp are we sending people out of? So the Rashi says, Shalosh machanot hayusham b'shat chaniyatan. We had 3 camps during the desert days. Toch haklaim hi machane shchina. Yeah, the inner camp was machane shchina, the divine camp. Chaniat haLeviim saviv k'moshe mufarash, Parshat Bamidbar. And last week's parsha we had the Leviim surrounding it, where Merari, Kahat, Gershon, each one, and Moshe was on the eastern side. And then Misham Vatsof Machaneh, and then from the outside of the Leviim, you had whom?
Everybody else.
The rest of the Jews. Machaneh Hadigalim, all the different flags. And we saw last week that the flag of Shimon was whom?
Shechem.
Was Shechem. Okay, L'chol Abba Ruchas Hi Machaneh Yisrael. And that's Machaneh Yisrael. So who has to leave from which camp? Where do we leave from? Which camp do we go out from? So he tells us, here's how it works. Hatsarua, someone who has sara'as, someone with sara'as leaves from Nishtaleh. Someone who has sara'as has to leave which, because you have three camps. Machaneh Shechina, we're in the midbar now. Machaneh Shechina, Machaneh Leviim, and the Machaneh Yisrael. Someone who has sara'as has to leave
All three.
all three. That's it. Very good. Chutz lukulan, because it says about him, Badad Yoshev, he has to dwell alone, outside of all three. Hazav, Zav is a different level of Tumah. Okay, that's a male who has certain kinds of emissions that will make him a Zav. Mutta, he could be where? So he could be in the Yisrael camp, but he has to leave the Machaneh Shechina and the Machaneh Leviim. And Tamei Nefesh, someone who is Tamei Nefesh, who is, like all of us are, without the Paraduma, we're all Tamei Nefesh, we have to leave from which camp? Tamei Nefesh?
Shechina.
Machaneh Shechina, but we're allowed in the Leviim camp and in the Yisrael camp. Ve'ina Meshulach Ela Mishal Shechina, V'kol Zeh Darshu Raboteinu Min HaMikraot B'Masechet Psachim. And that's all in Masechet Psachim, where in the halacha, the dapim over there discuss the different halachot. Okay? Good. So you'll say, very nice, this is great. Parsha Shir, what does it do halacha l'maisa? And it has to do with halacha l'maisa for every one of us in the room. Every one of us. You'll say, oh, maybe just Har Habayit people. No, every single one of us has to know these halachas today. Not just because we're going to have the Mikdash back, we're here for Yameinu, and not just because it will be Lamaisa. It's Lamaisa right now at this second. How so? So let's move to the Rambam in the book of Avoda. The Rambam, of course, has 14 books in his magnum opus, the Mishnah Torah, also known as
Yad HaChazaka.
Yad HaZakah, Yud Daled Yad HaChazaka. He covers all 613 mitzvos. It's just a work that, even 1,000 years later, it's unparalleled. It's unbelievable, his work. And you don't have the Shulchan Aruch on Korbanos. So we're going to have Korbanos soon, and everyone's learning about Korbanos to prepare for the Mikdash from Yetz Hashem. The Rambam, that's the work. When it's Hilchos Brachos and Shema and Shabbos, you have hundreds of works. And that's an important work too, the Rambam. But Korbanos, that's the work. So it's an amazing, amazing book. Really incredible. So tell me if this is just Parsha or this is Halacha L'Maisa for every one of us. And he says the following. This is the Rambam. He has Hilchos Beis HaBechira, the building of the Mikdash, and all the elements of the Mikdash. Then he has Klei HaMikdash, the Kalim of the Mikdash, the people work in the Mikdash. Then he has Bi'at HaMikdash, going into the Mikdash. Who is allowed to go into the Mikdash? Who cannot? And guess what? The halachot of who could come into the different sections in the Mikdash is exactly like what? Our Parsha. It's learned from our Parsha. Meaning, whatever halachas you had in the Machaneh Shechina, that applies to the, which area in Yerushalayim? To the Azara, where that golden dome is, which is going to be removed speedily nowadays.
Amen.
And it's going to have a Mikdash there. That's called the Azara area. The Azara is the Mishkan. That's Machane Shechina. Then the Levium area in the Midbar is what area today? Har Habayit. And then the Yisrael area is what area? The rest of Jerusalem, then the old city area, more or less. We don't know the exact halachic bein hachomot between the walls, but somewhere in the old city area, certainly the Kotel Plaza area. So the three categories from our parsha, those are the categories today. And you say, well, why does it apply to all of us? Maybe Danny Myers has to worry about it because I'm on Har Habayit, so I have to make sure that I take care of any tumah.
How often do you go?
Every few weeks, Baruch Hashem. But others who are not going, it's nice to learn about. It nothing to do with us. No, because you are going up to the Kotel. Now, what is the Kotel? What is the status of the Kotel?
Outside the Mikdash.
But wait, if you maintain, and this is the archaeological debate, but if you maintain, most people will tell you, I don't think they're right, but most will say that the Kotel is on the border of what camp? That the Kotel is in the Israel camp, and right over the Kotel is which camp? Levium, which is called what? Har Habayit. Wait a second. And let's say...
You mean right above the Kotel?
Above the other side.
Above the Kotel,
right.
Yeah.
Right? So, wait a second. So then you're maintaining that the Har Habayit is a foot away, so to speak, a couple feet away, a meter away on the other side. Wait a second. And you don't go to Har Habayit, and even if you do, you didn't prepare, you didn't go to the mikvah. So you maintain you're standing outside Har Habayit area. In the Machane Machane Yisrael area. That's what you maintain you're doing. Okay. You put your fingers in the Kotel? Yeah. And they put a note in the Kotel, which I'm not going to get into. Is it a good thing or not? Let's go and need our notes. That's a separate discussion. The post can discuss that. But we're discussing where are your fingers right now. So if you maintain that the Har Habayit is right above the Kotel on the other side, what is the Kotel? Where does that fit in? Do you hear the question? This is a great question that applies to all of us.
It wasn't there in the time of Solomon. It wasn't there in the time of David.
Oh, so now...
It was in land that Herod added.
Good.
So
Excellent.
none of that is on the Har Habayit.
You're saying... It's a little noisy there. There's background noise someone has in the...
Mute them.
I can't, I'm not in control.
Yes, you are. You are control.
No, but I'm not on my phone.
Oh, you're not on your phone.
Do most poskim say that the Kotel is outside Har
Very
Habayit?
good, very good, very
Do they
good.
say that?
I'm going to discuss that now.
Okay.
So anyways, you hear the questions of this question. Our parsha, every parsha is alive, even if it's nothing to do with Lamaisa. But when it's practical, it's a different level of applicability. It's just different. In this parsha, Bamidbar, Shalishi, the third Aliyah, chapter 5, it is so alive for every one of us. Halacha l'maisa. So now, before we understand the practical halachas here, let's just get the Rambam. There's no Shulchan Aruch on this, but the Rambam has it. The Mishnah Berurah mentions in when it talks about the halachas of ripping for the Mikdash. So there the Mishnah just says you should just know that the sanctity of the Azara is there today, even though the Mikdash isn't there. And don't you go up to the Azara Machane Shechina, which we all agree with. No one argues with that.
Above the Kotel.
Above the Kotel, where the temple, where the golden dome is, don't go there, which is fine. We can't learn from the Mishnah Berurah there that he would tell us not to go to Har Habayit. He's not telling us that. He's only saying don't go to the Azara because that's Machane Shechina and the Kedusha is there, even though the Mikdash is gone. And no one argues over that point. I mean, in terms of practical halacha, the Ravid has a cryptic statement that if you go there now, you aren't chayiv kares. You're not liable for the death penalty from God, and there's a discussion, what does he mean? But Mishnah Berurah paskins like the Rambam, and most paskin that the Kedusha is still there. So now what does that mean? So listen to this. So he says the following. Mitzvah says to the Kol HaTmeim and HaMikdash. The pasuk here about sending Tameim, in the biblical times it meant sending from the Mishkan and the camps there in the desert, and the Rambam just applies it to now. there's a mitzvah to send from the Mikdash, and he quotes our pasuk. V'yishachu min ha'machane kozvu kosav v'chol tamei lanefesh. I hope when everyone gets up to Shlishi this Shabbos, and you're following along in the laning, or you're reading at home, wherever you are, and you're up to Shlishi, Savis b'nei Yisrael, v'yishachu min ha'machane kozvu kosav v'chol tamei lanefesh. Send away this one and that one and that one. You're not reading Jewish history. You're reading a pasuk keeping Shabbos. You're reading halacha. Okay, just to give the right, we have to reframe this pasuk. And then he says, "Hamachna mokanu machna shchina, mipetach Ezrat Yisrael lifnim." You have the Ezrat Yisrael. So when I'm on the Har Habayit on the eastern side and I'm looking towards the Golden Dome, facing towards the Kotel area, right? So, but before the Kotel, I see the Golden Dome, and there's level and another level and another level. Of course, the Kodesh Kodashim is on the highest level of Har Habayit, and I'm looking as we go up, and I'm looking towards Ezrat. Ezrat Nashim is a few meters ahead of us. First you have the Chayil, Ezrat Nashim, then the Ezrat Yisrael, and then the Holy of Holies where the Golden Dome is. And he says, Zeh machne ukanu machne shchina. That area that you have to send everyone with any level of tumah, that's the Azara. Okay. Hasham hamitzorah zav tamei shtosh mikom achad. Talmitzorah. No. But mitzorah has to leave all three. Okay. So he says mitzorah leaves all three. And he has to leave Yerushalayim. Of course, halachic Yerushalayim. We're not talking about Hanof. We're talking about halachic Yerushalayim regarding this. Hanof is Yerushalayim regarding Megillas Esther, right? That's a different definition of how you define the walled city. But regarding Kedusha of the Machanot, so we're talking about Yerushalayim, the walled city area, more or less. And then he says, Meshachen Zavin v'Zavos Nidot. A woman is a need, a zav, different kinds of tumas that we have. They have to leave shtei machanot. So we need to leave the Azara area and the Har Habayit area to chutz la Har Habayit. He just interchanges Levi area in the midbar with Har Habayit. It's the same thing halachically. V'tamei meis, and a tamei meis, he only has to leave which area? The Shechina area, Ezrat, the Azara. But Har Habayit he could be, and he says for sure, because even a mace himself, even the dead person himself could be in Har Habayit.
Moshe Rabbeinu was holding
Moshe took Yosef.
The bones of Yosef.
Exactly, because Moshe had Yosef's bones.
And he was a Levi.
Exactly
Except
right.
for 1 week.
Okay, correct. So therefore, that's the Rambam taking Shlishi and just applying it to what we have today over there. Okay? Now, so this question is for every one of us. Every one of us has this question, because where does it end? So if you maintain that the Azara is the dome in that area and a little bit west of it, then of course you can't go there. No one could go to Al Tamei Meis. We don't have the Paraduma. And then you maintain the Har Habayit area, Tamei Meis, someone who's Tamei Meis can go, as long as you take care of your other Tum'ah. So then you have to look into the halachas of how to take care of the Tum'ah. Do you need just a regular mikvah, counting 7 days? What about a river, Ma'ayan? So that's a whole complicated topic there. And then, where